You are listening to Level Up Gaming Podcast, episode 102, Combining Actions. In today's episode, we talk about combining player actions. We discuss some built-in systems for combining actions. We also discuss some ways to combine actions when the rules aren't there. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually, situations have displaced him, Jared.
Displacement is a very, very good term for this. So it's not been a banner week in our household. Furnace in our rental unit died. It had been dying over the course of like 2 months. We kept calling.
It's tough.
And the rental company kept sending a person who was not qualified to fix it, and finally it just went kaput in the middle of the night. So fortunately, my mother flies back and forth to Florida. She snowbirds in Florida. So we drove, it's only about 40 minutes from us. It's my mother's house, moved into my mother's house, but that involves the movement of, food, 3 cats, litter boxes, water bowls, food feeders, food for us, clothes. It's a lot. It's been an exhausting weekend. Yeah.
It's rough. I mean, I'm glad we were able to get the recording in here. Had you not heard us this week, it probably would have just been me musing on some other subject. But it's tough. Thank you for getting through it here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not on a street corner or anything like that, so I can thank the Lord for that.
Yes.
That's the blessing, and we're now in a nice warm house, and the kittens are no longer sticking to us like glue, absorbing our body heat. So it's good. Now they
talk about something that we've
a whole new house to explore.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things in this house, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there's so much stuff to get under. I feel bad for Quinn. My mother has a china cabinet with glass windows, and Quinn tried to jump into it twice and found out there's an invisible barrier. So she popped her noggin twice, pretty good. But it only took twice. There wasn't a third time. I think the second time she was like, "Okay, that's impossible. There's an invisible force field." And it's also a credit to my mother. She really does keep that glass. I mean, just clean. You can't. Cats can't even spot that it's there.
Oh man, that's funny.
Oh, dude, it was you just hear this bang, and then you look and there's on the floor, standing up, like looking around, like what the hell was that?
Oh
man. Yeah, that was interesting. And our mother-in-law has been super awesome. Fortunately, my mother-in-law don't live far from us, so my mother-in-law has been coming in and checking. It's funny. My mother has sent our neighbor, or my old,
and I like to
when they moved in, and sent them to check in on us. And my mother-in-law has been over every day to check in on us. And Allie and I are like, we're 30-something years old and have been living on our own for quite some time. We can handle this. We're not teenagers left home alone. So it's been pretty funny.
That's again, I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but we'll persevere, and we'll provide you guys with some entertainment here, and hopefully you find the story. Again, it's rough.
Yep, it's just it ain't home, And of course, I have to go on a business trip this week, so that just adds.
Really,
Mm-hmm.
really messes up your week. Yeah, on top of all the stuff going on, you have to then go ahead and leave from your display store.
Yep. Yeah. But off that topic, Aaron, what is our topic for this week?
So this week, I thought we would talk about combining actions between players, and this actually came up. It sparked my idea last week when we were playing our game, and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? We tend to. There's no good system for it in White Wolf, and there's no good system for it. I mean, at least to my knowledge, in D&D. And the only place that I actually have found a combined role sort of system is in 7th Sea in the game that I'm playing on Thursday nights, and that one has a very it's an interesting feel to it. It's not like a great system, but it's better than nothing. So I just kind of wanted to talk about like, well, what do you do? How do you balance that? Because typically you're going to probably have to homebrew it to some extent.
So why don't you give us an example?
Okay, so
of a situation.
Brian and I are searching a room or looking over a clue in our game. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to discern information about it. Okay, well, I've got 5 dice to throw at it. Brian has 4 dice to throw at it, or 5 dice to throw at it. We could each roll, okay, which is a way of combining actions, meaning everybody rolls. I'll take the best roll, basically. Okay? Or what you have done here in the past is you combine your rolls, where now we're sort of playing this behind the scenes, like the players are talking and they're pointing at things and you're inferring stuff from the other player within the action. And thus we just combine the number of successes in the rolls. Where in 7th Sea, for example, if you combine actions, you can give the other player a free raise, which is basically add 5 to your success number that you rolled. So like there's a built-in system for that, that makes combat and other things you do a little bit more palatable. So that's an example of it.
Okay, so that's a great example. And Aaron, you hit the nail on the head with White Wolf. So with the D10 or storyteller system, there's really 2 things that you can do. Now, 3 things. You can have 2 dice rolls, take the highest dice roll. I'm not particularly a fan of that one, because essentially, why don't we just each person? It just leaves up to each person rolling. There's actually no advantage of getting together. It's still, the same odds, the same outcomes. And I'm a big fan of the idea of 2 heads are better than 1. Big fan. So there should be a actual discernible advantage. And that's why I like the idea of combining dice pools. So, you roll, Aaron gets 3 successes, Brian rolls, he gets 2 successes. That's a total of 5 successes. Now, for storytellers, you might go, well, I had planned this for a certain challenge level. And then my players decided to work together as a team to do it. This is one of those situations that it's, hey, yeah, they upset your planned apple cart. That's what they're gonna do. And players shouldn't be abnormally challenged or their success or their idea denied simply because it didn't go to plan. So when it comes down to it, I typically combine the dice rolls. Now, another way of doing it, let's say in a combat situation, let's do some, because you said 7 Cs, so now I'm in a swashbuckling mood. So if I were doing that in White Wolf, and let's say I have 2 players fighting 1 goon, or pirate, I don't know. And it's swords. What I might choose to do is because any person will admit who's ever been in a fight, 2-on-1 is really just the worst. Um, it's awful. I really wouldn't take the combined role on that one. What I might do at that part is force the NPC to split their dice pool. I'm gonna, let's say they have 5 dice to parry. I'm gonna take 3 dice and put it towards Aaron. I'm gonna take 2 dice and put it towards Brian. Because it's just more likely you're probably gonna get stabbed by one of the two, and they get their full dice roll. Now, if you're doing something anime-ish, because different storytellers bring in different themes, different moods, different genres. Anime is a very respectable genre. I think there's a lot to explore there if you're going with an anime feel to your game. If they're doing the side by side super Amish slice, which is a combined move. Here's what I would recommend. First off, don't let your players just come up with this on the fly. Just like any dance routine, it has to be practiced. So if they want to come up with the side by side super squid, I'm going to call it the super squid slice, their characters have to come up with it. They can't just come up with it in the heat of battle, unless you want to do that for thematic effect. Really go the anime style, like, oh, we thought of this on the fly and just did it together and learned this new power. I would probably in that situation allow the players to combine dice pool. Both have them roll. Aaron rolls his 5, Brian rolls his 5. They get a total of 3 successes. So although the super yada 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 slice still has a chance at fail, but it has a higher chance of hit. And especially if it hits, it's the damage that really comes into effect. But if you are going to allow that spontaneously, that's how I would do it. Just off the cuff. I got to do something. Allow them to do this. If, however, my players are interested in having a move like that, they're thinking about a move like that, I would sit down with my players and come up with some systems for it. Is it a 3-part move? Which might be fun to dice play a little bit. If they succeed in phase 1 and phase 2 of the super side by side squid slice, the part 3 not only gets their combined dice pool, but a few extra dice because they successfully did phase 1 and 2, which is the run back and then the jump attack and then the slice. You might want to do something like that. And it's a fun way to cooperatively build that technique with your players. And it should be a fun exercise. You guys should have a little fun with it. For Aaron, Aaron has to deal with Brian and my character. We typically attack in tandem. So my character will typically get her shield. Yes, my character carries around an honest-to-God shield. And use her spear to keep a range around the Brian's character clear. And then Brian typically stays behind my character and uses his gun. So that way we're both melee and firearm, and it keeps Brian's character pretty safe because I have a very high dodge with my shield, especially. I get a lot of bonus from that. If I were Aaron, I would sit down, build my vision of every time, because I'll admit it, Brian and I do it what? I'd say at least
Every time you're together, you're pretty much doing it.
I mean, there's a couple of times that you break formation, but for the most part,
Yeah,
Jared's
because like
yeah,
against the scale of blood, we didn't do that.
yeah.
I decided I was gonna
You didn't do it
run
there.
into the guy's knee.
Um, you did it. The guy who was firing that flamethrower at you. I think you didn't start that way, but then you reformed into that formation
Uh,
because.
the most recent is the fire or Moore's fire spirit when it came at us. We went to that formation.
But yeah, the thing that you tend to do with it is it covers a weakness that one of you has, or if you're injured, it helps cover weaknesses and the wound penalties that you guys have, which is important. I mean, and again, so what's interesting in what you had said there is if you come up with it on the fly, or you're being surrounded by two people and you decide that you're going to split the dice pool of your enemy. My immediate thought kind of goes to, well, you're probably doing that to match your player power scaling. This is a way that you could do it. Okay, stealthily without your player sort of being aware that your power scaling has been split in such a way. Or if your players start working in tandem and you realize that the boss that you put in front of them is too strong, these are things that obviously give you advantages, to the player and make it so the power scaling sort of tips more in their favor. A good example of that would be in D&D, where you can do the flanks on an enemy. Okay?
Yes.
And so flanking gives you advantage in 5e. I don't know what it did in the previous versions of D&D, but it lets you roll 2 dice, and the math for that comes out to basically a +5 to your hit. So, like, it's a big, swing in battle that you guys can work together to move yourself into that flanking position and, feed off on one another. So that's sort of what Jared's getting at there in terms of the White Wolf system or the storyteller system, which lets you then kind of split the attention of the enemy and thus giving you advantage all over the place. With the entire, the entirety of the story. So it's a good way to scale down an enemy without needing to make them less menacing and like having to like totally obliterate their stats in the middle of combat or something like that. So I like that idea of it. You're right. I probably should sit down with you and Brian and come up with an actual system to how this thing works, because you guys do it all the time. But again, it's designed to sort of cover weaknesses at the times that you guys are prone. Because there are times when your guys are full health and you're a little bit more gung-ho. But when you're together, when you feel the threat, you tend to kind of shell into this formation. And it's helpful in my regard because I get to sort of do the same thing with the splitting of the dice pool at the times too, where I can decide like, okay, this is a good time to be able to give you that advantage because you've chosen to take that defensive posture and, kind of cover each other's weaknesses. You've gone full defense, Brian's gone full offense, and that team together then, becomes a bigger shell or a better, attacking version. Brian doesn't get more attack dice necessarily, but you get more defense dice, which is what you need when you're trying to, fight something that's way above your power scale effectively. So
when you're playing humans,
so it's a way to kind of tip the scales a little bit in the favor of your players. Still rolling the dice, you still prone to failure. It's very interesting in that regard. The one thing that's very very interesting outside of combat, not just on the combat side of things, but outside of combat, is if you do a combined dice pool. You tend to move in the favor of the players, meaning that if one of the players botches or fails, you don't tend to subtract the successes off of the person who succeeded, which is interesting. It's like the combined dice pool rarely fails, like straight up, unless we both botch. And I guess that would be applicable in combat too, where the combined dice pool rarely fails unless you completely botch. So it's right. It's an interesting thing, like, again, tipping the scales even more in your player's favor in that regard. So, like, the two heads are better than one, but the person who is completely incompetent or not able to, like, let's say you've got two dice in Jared's case, it's much easier for you to botch. I mean, it's just you're rolling, less dice. The likelihood that you're going to roll a failure on it and not a success is much higher. So, it's an interesting thing where like, well, no matter how bad that person is at it, your combined dice will never negatively impact you in that regard. Like, your successes don't detract from Brian's deductions. So it's sort of a net positive by combining in some of those cases.
Absolutely. And there are some outside, so Aaron brought up the idea of looking at things, not just in the combat orientation, but also in a social orientation or a mental orientation. So Aaron's first example is actually investigating a room. I like doing that combined dice pool because, just as Aaron said, you're feeding off of each other. You're bouncing around ideas. I wonder if anything's on the computer. Then you search the computer, and then electricity. But we should check all the light bulbs. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something right there. Sure as shit, the drugs are in the light bulbs. So it really, in those mental situations and in investigating enigmas, I really do tend to give that superior advantage to people working together. In social situations, the same thing. If you got two people trying to convince you of something, it's far more effective than one. I can say this from the business world. 1-on-1 is great, but 2-on-1 is far better. Dominates talking time also. So I'm also going to give them that advantage. And it just, one of the main things that I want to draw back from just the in-game advantages and pull back to the actual table advantages. A good amount of my gaming career gained at another table, a table which the storyteller not only allowed PvP and, intergroup conflict, downright encouraged it. Very much encouraged it. And honestly, it led to a very negative experience as a player for me because things would always get slowed down. We're not engaging the story anymore. It's been a 40-minute, blah, blah, blah between two players. And that turns into a fight. And then somebody's ego always gets bruised. And then because they lost the fight, then they got to go out and smoke. And I'm like, Jesus, this has been 2 hours focused on solely two players with the other 5 of us in the room just around doing nothing. And you've got the person who's going to try to stop it and yada, yada. The thing about allowing teamwork or combined actions and actually giving advantages is it encourages the players to be a team. It encourages them to work together. Subconsciously, they're thinking, wow, I'm better off with this person on my side than without. It's so if you have a table with a lot of conflict, whether it's just the one person who loves the Kender to run off into the darkness, definitely, and it's annoying the other players, and the other players are getting into interpersonal conflict or character conflict with it. I've always said, let that Kender die. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah.
But when they really see that, hey, when we really work together, and I don't just mean like we're in a team, we're fighting 100 ninjas who dropped out of the ceiling of this tavern, and each one of us is engaging our own target. When they finally see that, oh my gosh, when 2 of us teamed up on one ninja, that fight was over so quick. Whether or not they'll continue to do that, you don't know. But you're going to see a bond between the two players, the foundations of a bond, I should say, start to form. Because trust me, it's very cool to play teamwork oriented characters. And I don't just mean when the chips are down. You know, everyone tends to be a team member when someone just got rocked for, you know, through 2/3 of their hit points and are dying on the battlefield. Then they'll come in and just, you know, whomp whoever they were fighting, pick him up off his feet, or give the healer enough time to run over there. But when they're fighting together or working together as a teamworking, it's a new word. When they're working together as a team, you are going to see trust me, there's something different about it. It's a really cool thing. We're like, holy crap, like we work together as a team, things get easier, we hit more often, there's more fun to be had, because who doesn't love landing their hit? You know what I mean? Everybody loves landing their hit. There's not one person at your table is like, man, I really wish I had missed that one.
Again, now
there is.
The counter to that is that there are tables out there where, you know, people want to mark their kill. People want to be the guy.
Oh my god, yeah.
And
yeah.
That's a tough situation. If that's your player base, you know, it's going to be hard. What tends to happen is you see the advantages of the combined role, combined action, and that should hopefully be enough of an enticing thing to start shifting people. However, if you're playing in like an experience rewarded system and you're not divvying out experience like evenly across the group, meaning the actions of the players result in the gain of experience, but it's like who struck the final kill gets the experience, then you got a whole different bag of worms. You have to correct one problem before you can even begin to introduce this, because your players are geared towards, I can't work with you, otherwise I don't get my full experience, or I can't do this with you, otherwise I'll miss the kill, or I'll miss the thing that will give me, you know, the reward. So you have to be really careful with that. If you're like, if you want to do it, you're like, why are my players so against teamwork? Like, that might be it. So you just
it's very true. I mean, like it really is. Like, oh man, if I lay the last hit on that goblin, I get that 50 XP. You know, and it's like I've been working on that goblin for half an hour. You know, and then someone runs in, gets the last PC kill, or gets the last hit points, like 50, 50 experience, yay! And you're right. It actually actively encourages your players not to work together. It encourages them to I don't know, like act like a wolf, dragging your kill off and fending off the other wolves, so you get to eat. You know, it's really not a good way of handling experience. But yeah, I would highly recommend, in that when you have collaborative actions that gain collaborative kills, one of the things that I might do, because I very much encourage teamwork at my table. I like it. I like my players working together. I like my players goofing off each other and doing that. And what Aaron Bryan and I have going nowadays, which is it's such like improv theater, which is fantastic. I like that. I enjoy it. And so I encourage it as much as possible. And you might, in a D&D system, might only not say, well, you both get the 50 XP from the goblin, and 5 XP for working together. That might be a way of starting that encouragement of collaborative actions in a table where it has been, I must defend my kill against the other players. so I get my XP, you know, or as Aaron said, start changing your XP, how you're going to do it. And that should always start with the discussion with your players, you know, advanced notifications, start again, 1 month. I will no longer, we will take a mass XP together and it will be divided up equally. It doesn't matter how many kills you got. Doesn't matter if you sat on the ground the entire time, you get the XP.
It's actually, again,
that's a whole different topic.
What I can see on the other end of it is that you get fearful that your players are constantly doing things together, meaning that like Jared said with the social situation. So how do you give, if you combine actions in D&D, how do you give a player, you know, more benefit from having two heads trying to convince somebody the same thing? Well, you could do the advantage thing. You can have each roll a dice, take the best of the two. You can have the person who's trying to convince roll 2 dice, take, you know, that you always get to take the best when you're doing advantage. The other thing that you could do, and if you have more people join in the fun, you can either add more dice to the whole thing, or you can start adding some modifiers at the end of it. I mean, like you're going to add some extra stuff, but what you're going to then find is that your players are, you know, they're crushing through some stuff, and you're going to go, well, how do I keep my players from just, you know, flagrantly abusing this? Now everybody is combining their actions to get the best result. So like that's the other side of this world that you don't want to live on, where all you're doing now is combining actions to get a better result. Okay, you want to what you need is you need to kind of skillfully position your players where they're not always together, and so they can't always, you know, act as a team. So like that's how you get around it at some point. And the other thing too is that you get your players comfortable. The more comfortable they are in a situation, the less likely they're going to think about like, oh, I need to use teamwork here to, you know, get my +5 and, you know, whatever that's going to be. You know, the more comfortable they are in a situation, the less threatening something seems, the more likely they are to act independently. And then when you kind of ramp up that threat level, you can get your hits in before they start going into the teamwork turtle or whatever you're gonna do. And you know, you end up you end up imposing threat, meaning like there's sort of that ebb and flow. You again, you don't want to be in the world where they're constantly using, you know, Jared's X squid slash or whatever, you know, they've got, because
super
it gives
side by side squid slice.
Super side by side squid slice. You don't want to be in that world, because what you got then is you have players who are literally only attacking with one maneuver over and over and over again, because it gives them, you know, advantage on the attack, and it gives them like +10 damage and all this craziness and whatever it's going to be. And you don't want to be there either, is my thing. So, no. You know, if you constantly see it happening, then you have to develop a system for it. Okay. Because you need to make it so, sure, we could do it, but you have to always, you know, there's always a prep step, or there's always like something else that happens here. So it's you lose an action to get some serious damage in your next action, you know, something of that regard. The first time that it happens, flagrantly do whatever you want to do, because it made the situation cool. You know, they often talk about the rule of cool, you know, let it be. But if your players are constantly doing it, or they're constantly using combined actions, again, you don't want to devoid the game of any challenge whatsoever. And the combined actions in some way do that in some regards. So either the challenge has to then beef up to match it up, or you have to get your players kind of into this mode of juggling, like, am I comfortable enough to just kind of do this thing? Okay. Or am I going to wait for somebody to assist me? You know, am I going to go do something on my own, or am I going to wait for somebody to assist me? And you can sort of, it's sort of a feeling out thing. You gotta kind of present your players with challenges that don't feel so daunting, that they feel like they could do it without the teamwork. And, you know, naturally, when you come around the table, you've probably played without teamwork, or, you know, without combining dice for so long. You don't think about it every roll. I don't think about it every roll. I do it sometimes. I don't always do it. So like that'd be my, you know, my caveat on that.
I mean, that's honestly nail on the head. You can't have it be everything because the game should still be at least challenging. And if they're doing that, you got to have that ebb and flow. And Aaron's right. I love how he put it, nicely, which is get them to a comfort level. I think he should have just said, lure them into a false sense of security.
That's what you're doing. You're luring them into a false sense of security, and then when they're feeling nice and safe, and I can't fail, all this other stuff, then wham! Here's the big ogre that jumps out of the trees and clobbers you over the head.
Yeah, exactly. And you can always put environmental stuff in that prevents teamwork. The super side-by-side squid slash requires that they jump 15 feet in the air. Well, there's a roof. You can't do it. Super side-by-side squid slash can only be done outside, clearly, or in a football stadium.
Yeah, you have all sorts of things. Again, the first time it happens, it was magical. Okay, after they do it every single attack, then you start going, okay, well, we got to come up with a system for this, or it doesn't work in this situation. It doesn't you put the rules around it. Once you put the rules around it, then people stop doing the super side by side squid slash every single attack.
And that's why I like always developing rules for stuff. Actually putting it on paper. This is what it does. Because it as you're developing those rules, you have to be prepared for okay, what if they start abusing it? Maybe there's a requirement of how many times they can do it in a scene. Requires a stamina roll to see how much they can, how often they can do it. Because the super side by side squid slash clearly is going to get you out of breath.
It's extremely punishing on the body. It's
totally punishing. It's a squid slash, man. And there's other things for teamwork in the social that can be used as limiting factors. I bring my half orc and the human to negotiate with the elf. The elf is naturally prejudiced against the half orc, and actually there's a downfall from working collaboratively there. He won't talk to the half orc. He's actually getting upset because you are trying to get him to talk to a half orc that he doesn't like. So there's that too. And then mental stuff,
mental stuff is the one that I would probably let you just say, if they want to combine it, just let them combine it. It doesn't do you any good, because typically the mental stuff is the stuff that's this, you're trying to decipher a clue, and that clue, or you're trying to decipher the enigma, and that enigma is what is necessary to get them out of the room in the dungeon, or to move them to the next plot point. It's really hard for me to say that, in terms of anything mental, to say try to limit them from combining actions, because mental's the one place where it's you against object. It's not you against other person, you against, something. It's you against the roadblock that you put in place. Okay. It's how do we get across this ravine? And, you're not just waiting for one player to come up with a good solution. If you're with 5 people, you're going to talk to one another what do we have? Okay, you got rope, you've got a grappling hook, and you've got you've got two.
Unless you're on the other game or the other table I was at, because that would be, hey, this person's got rope. And then he'd say, no, I'm not giving you any rope. Why? Because you stole my fucking kill. Give me your rope. I'm not giving you my rope. I'm going to hit you with my sword.
I'll give you enough rope to hang yourself with.
Dude, that's how bad it was sometimes. No, I'm not giving you my rope because you fucked with me. Give me your rope. No, I kill you. Holy shit.
This is escalated quickly.
Yeah. You went from working teammates to I'm going to murder the other person in about 2.5 seconds. So yeah.
Um, but yeah, you have anything else you want to add to this one here, Jared?
No, I felt we really covered the topic very well.
All right, yeah, no, definitely. If you have any thoughts on combining actions or how you handle it at your table, maybe you're an avid D&D player and you've got specific ways that you like to combine non-combat actions or combat actions as well beyond the flanking advantages and stuff like that. Let us know. Levelupyourgamingpodcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. We are also on YouTube, so
Smash that like button with a friend.
excellent. Yes, teamwork. Um, and you can comment on our episodes there. We do read all the comments, get back to people on that stuff as well. And also review the podcast, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We've got many, many more episodes coming out this year. A lot of other wonderful content. Go back and listen to the other episodes too. But that's going to wrap us up for the week. Hopefully next week Jared's in his own place again. So for Jared,
hopefully,
I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone.